your bed, that I can get you back inside your head, before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Thanks for watching. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris, and you guys can follow me on Twitter if you don't already, right there at People's_Pundit. Wednesday, June 17th. We got a lot to cover since we're doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like the page on YouTube, and don't forget to or subscribe to the page on YouTube and like the page on Facebook. All right. Let's just get into it, because since we weren't on Tuesday, we got a lot that we need to cover this morning. Look at the advanced retail sales numbers, right? So that's what this show is all about. We got more data coming in every day, economic data. It looks more and more like a V-shaped recovery, starting with that blockbuster jobs report, which, you know, not that a lot of people didn't expect. It's just the timing that they did expect it, right? So let's start from where we missed and then roll into what came out today, because all good news, folks. It's all good news. I'm not going to bring it up because I want to show you the chart on the actual screen, which will be clearer to you. But so advanced retail sales, they soared last month, 17.7 in May. That's the largest gain ever on record. Retail sales, all about consumer spending. During the Obama years, retail sales were supposed to be dead. All right. Backstory time. Retail sales were supposed to be dead. They were never supposed to come back. And that was supposed to be the end of it. People bought online. Amazon was going to replace it. Online shopping was going to replace good old brick and mortar. All right. In the Trump era, that did not happen. And that's one of the defying economic indicators that we get in the Trump era. All right. So this absolutely showed a V-shaped recovery. I'll put it up on a screen in a hot minute, but May's gains recovered more than the loss in April, and almost everything before that we lost since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, we're still down 6.1% from year ago levels, but, you know, give it another month, right? This was May, same month for the jobs report. We are now, of course, in the month of June, coming up on the month of July. So what does that tell us about the future? of consumer spending, which this economy still is a 2/3 consumer spending economy. Forecasts range from a low of 2.3 to a high of 12.2. So nobody expected retail sales to come in gangbuster like this. The consensus was just 7.5. The month of April was revised from negative 16.4 to negative 14.7. So April was not as bad as initially reported. And we're starting to see that in a lot of these numbers. Not everything, but a lot of these numbers. It turns out the numbers in April, while ugly, are not as ugly. We're seeing that from employment to spending, confidence. All right. Forecasts for retail sales less auto range from a low of 0.4 to a high of 8.6. The consensus forecast was only 5.2. The advance estimate for May came in far higher at 12.4. And if you've seen some of the other economic data on auto, that's why you know the core retail, which is less auto, was much higher at 17.7. Auto had a fantastic month during the month of May. They had a fantastic month. So forecasts for retail sales, less auto and gas, range from a low of only 0.3 to a high of 5.0. The consensus forecast was just 4. The advance estimate for May also came in at 12.4 for retail sales, less auto and gas. That is obviously far higher than expected, almost 3 times higher than expected. And because I got so much to cover, I'm going to bang through these indicators this morning. But let's look at, I'm blind. Let's look and see. I think this is the retail sales right here. Yeah, here we go. So what do we mean by a V-shaped recovery? That's what we mean. That's what it looks like. Is it a slow, prolonged recovery from the bottom, from the trough, or is it a very strong bounce back that when you plot it on a line, an area, or a spleen graph, it looks like a V? Well, there's your answer right there. That is a V. And yesterday I was like on Twitter, oh, look, a V. Cue Joe Biden screaming at Rick Wilson and George Conway for running the ads that they're running on the Lincoln Project. Because the ads were this is what Furman warned them about, really warned everybody about. Do not go after Trump on the economy yet. There are other things to go after Trump on, but we may start seeing record numbers and you're going to look stupid. And this is what he meant. And they didn't listen. I'll run whatever I want to run. I'll run whatever I want to run. Run it, George. Run it. All right. And look, sorry. That photo cracks me up. I mean, that was just incredibly, you want to be prudent in politics. If you remember, you guys watch all the time. You know the show. Remember the show, Joe Biden's Risky Strategy? This is what I was talking about. Don't get ahead of yourself. Do not get ahead of yourself. But they did this morning. All right. And you know what? Actually, before the Empire State Manufacturing Survey, that came back basically to baseline. I don't think we got to that on Monday. But for those who don't remember it, the Empire State Manufacturing Survey crushed the forecast. It wasn't even they have the expected, which is the future optimism side of it. And then they have the current conditions index. It wasn't even the current conditions, which basically still was like negative 0.2 of a percentage point. So barely in contraction. And we are talking about the Northeast region, which was strong and strict on lockdowns. All right. But we are talking, about New York. So if it's coming back to the baseline, other regions doing better, the expected soared to the highest level in more than 10 years. So that was also good news, and by the way, if you plot that on maybe during the break, it doesn't look like I got it. During the break, I'll circle back. You want to see a V. This index collapsed. Think about the region too. This index collapsed and then it shot back up. And right before the COVID shutdown, we were looking at overheating in the first 2 years of the Trump era. Overheating means it was really too high. It's growth that's so strong it can't be sustained. So you look at it, you say, these indexes are overheating. So was the Philadelphia Fed. That was overheating. The Manufacturing Business Outlook Survey. So you want it to pull back to more like solid and steady, consistent growth around 8 for the New York Empire State Manufacturing Survey. So where it is now is not like it's got to return to 30 plus 30 points. It's just not like that's not how that survey works. And the expected soared. And I'll circle back and I'll grab that. But let's move into this morning because this first segment on the economy, I want to get through everything we missed because I want to get into the National Voter File Database. I know you guys are all wondering about the polls. And we're going to get into it because it takes time. It's a database of 215 almost million people, million records. And I wanted to run a solid analysis of the database to give you a better idea of what the electorate looks like, because we are seeing some of these crazy polls. You guys know I think Joe Biden's ahead, but he's not ahead by some of these numbers that we're seeing. It is ground that can be made up. And some of these polls, when you look at them, we're looking and it jumps right out at you. You could see the response bias. It jumps right out at you. Republicans and conservatives have been scared into their respective corners. They don't want to take surveys. I see it in Michigan right now. Looks like I'm going to be dipping into another battleground state too soon, and I'll show it to you myself, which is why you need mixed mode surveys to collect the responses from these people who simply are not going to want to speak to pollsters right now because of everything that is going on. That is textbook response bias. When Gallup goes from being R+1, R+2 to D+3, that is response bias. That is not, that's not the answer to all of his decline, but it answers a lot and it explains these large margins. But before we get into that, because I do want to just bang through this. All right, housing starts, building permits. This now lags. This is also for May. Just came out this morning. It's the new residential construction report. And let me read through it. New residential construction statistics for housing starts and building permits rose in May despite the lingering effects due to coronavirus. Many governments and businesses are still operating on a limited capacity or have ceased operations completely. The new residential construction statistics report is released jointly, by the way, by the U.S. Census Bureau and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. Privately owned housing starts in May came in at a seasonally adjusted 974,000 for an annual rate. That's 4.3% above the upwardly revised April estimate of 934,000. Again, April was revised higher. I said before, we're seeing a lot of this in the economic data. April was bad. It was ugly. It sucked to watch, but it was marginally, at least marginally, with a lot of these indicators, not as bad as expected. We're still 23.2% below the May 2019 rate of 1,268,000. A lot of this stuff in the Trump era, there's only nowhere to go but down. It's so gangbuster. It's so strong. There was almost always nowhere to go but down. And it does look like we entered a recession about a month before this anyway, a month and a half before this anyway, which would have hindered some of the thoughts on whether this would be a V-shaped recovery. But we're already surging back to those levels where we were thinking to ourselves, when is the housing market going to come around and be that fourth cylinder? So the Trump economy is firing on all four cylinders. That was the sector of the economy that was hanging back. We saw areas of consumer spending kick back into gear, even though we were told that will never happen again. That's just the nature of our new economy under Barack Obama and Joe Biden. It was not true. Manufacturing, that was just the goods producing sector. Mining, manufacturing combined, they were just never going to come back. Where's his magic wand? He can't wave a magic wand. Well, he did. And they came back. All right. So it's going to be hard to creep back up to these levels. But considering we were supposed to be in a recession a month and a half ago, 2 months ago anyway. It's really incredible to see this kind of bounce back this quick. Building permits. All right, so housing starts is another, we used to call it groundbreaking on the street. Building permits, you go in to the county, wherever it is, you go and you apply for the permit. City, county, whatever, township, whatever you live in your area of the country, and you apply for the building permit. Those are building permits. Then you break ground. That's housing starts. And then the final lagging indicator there is housing completions, which we'll get to in a second. But building permits, privately owned housing unit authorized by building permits in May, came in at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 1,220,000. That's 14.4% up from April, which was a rate of 1,066,000, but was still below 8.8% below the May 2019 rate of 1,338,000. A ridiculously strong indicator. Also, before we move on from this, because getting the housing completions, that's kind of the end of the road, right? The forecasts were just a little bit shy, came in just a little bit shy of forecasts on this report. All right. But mortgage applications, the Mortgage Bankers Association runs a weekly survey, the MBA Mortgage Applications Weekly Survey. Volatile as all hell. It's up 20%. The refinance index is up 20%, or the purchase index up 15% one week. It's down 15% the next week. It's volatile as all hell. Over the last month, this index has surged. This week, we're looking at another 8% gain for the composite index. That's after a 9.3% gain the week before. The purchase index, we're looking at a 4% gain. That's a key index for this survey on the street. And then that comes after a 5% gain for the purchase index. And the refi is 10% up. That's after an 11% gain. So people are not shying away, at least at this point. I can't wait until we get the pending home sales index, which gives us contract signings. They were just starting the turn of the damn year. They were just starting to come up. Existing home sales too, but pending home sales really gives you a better, broader idea of this market. What a damn shame, but we're starting to see them circle back now. Housing completions, back to the new residential construction report, because it's 10/17. Privately owned housing completions in May came in at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 1,115,000. That's 7.3% below the revised again. Downward, upwardly better, revised in the correct direction. Housing completions were revised up for April to 1.2, a little over 1.2 million. They're still, though, 9.3% below the May 2019 rate of 1.23 million. But getting close. And April just turned out not to be as bad as we thought it was prior. That's why we call a lot of these, by the way, advanced estimates. Advance, no D, although I say it sometimes. Advanced estimates. All right. The housing market, why does this matter? The housing market, like I just said, was one of the few cylinders that were not firing at full bore in the Trump era, which gave us 3% GDP growth. The Trump bump. The Trump economy. Barack Obama's economy, while steady growth, was very weak. That's not something that is a matter of partisan debate. It was a very weak economic period, and it didn't work for everybody. It was not a good economy to be a worker or a non-supervisory employee or a non-tech professional. It was a terrible time to be that. Working jobs were in leisure and hospitality. Much of them were part-time, which is one of the major reasons we did not see upward pressure on wages. The corporate tax rate was too high, which we've been over before, which also suppresses wage growth. But one of the areas that could have put us above 3% GDP growth was housing. If we saw that strong, tight labor market, strong demand for labor, we saw pressure on wages. It bumped them to 3%, then above, held there for 22 consecutive months of growth at or above 3% on the 12-month change for average hourly earnings. Great personal income and outlays reports. They do an annual revision, and they turned out to be bigger than ever, bigger than previously thought. And all of that money, all of that income leads to optimism, I think, and comfort, by the way. Comfort. I think I'm able to build this house now. Right, Laura? I think I'm able to build this house now. I feel comfortable enough. Let's go forward. I'm doing better. My credit is better. Most Americans, unfortunately, have a lot of credit card debt. But I think the bank will give me a loan for a house now. That just started. And you have existing homes that are there. Inventory was very low. So a house would go on the market, and even though we didn't see big numbers, a house would go on the market, be on the market for an average of like 2.5 months, get sucked right up, and then there was no inventory again. First-time buyers, they were remaining largely out of the market for the first 2 years, 2.5 years of the Trump economy. Come the end of 2019 and into the beginning of 2020, all of that changed. Everything we were looking for began to change. First-time buyers were starting to make that move. Knocking things over. First-time buyers were starting to come in. Like, you know what? It's a big decision. It's a big life decision. I'm ready to make it. Let's pull the trigger. Let's do it. And then this coronavirus crap happened. And then leaders decided to make a completely unfounded, unsupported, rash decision to shut down their economies. You couldn't even go and show a home in New York. And in many places, by the way. That's not just New York, but Cuomo started that. You damn sure had a very hard time building one. I've told you my own personal story now probably 3 times. We got very lucky. We got our permits in there. We were able to break ground before this happened. So unfortunately, my future neighbors, they were left to lag. And the crews were focused largely on our home. So we got lucky. But it was bittersweet because you know the people you're going to be living around and you feel bad for them. But they made that choice before this happened. And then, of course, it does, and it artificially tanks these indexes. One of them, which leads to, so this index we're about to go over now, I'm going to leave a couple minutes. Let me see. I think I do have that. Let's see. Oh, don't show that yet. Okay, that's retail. This is the new residential construction index before we move over to the HMI. The National Association of Home Builders, Wells Fargo Housing Market Index, otherwise known as the HMI. Been around for like 30 years. More than 30 years now, I think. But this is for the Census Bureau, what you're seeing right now. This is the new residential construction report. Okay, you can see completions in blue. They lag next month. You'll see a V on that too. But it goes permits, starts, because you're breaking ground after you get the permit, and then completions. Gold are building permits. The line right there in gold is building permits, as you can see, and then the red is starts. So red is lagging, of course, naturally. But you can see clear as day, guys. You can see it right there. Building permits bouncing back quickly, very quickly. And then the others, the great thing about this report is that we know the others will follow. Okay? If you see a strong V-shaped recovery, you know the others are going to follow. All right? So anyway, this report, though, was not reflective of the strong builder sentiment that we were seeing out there. The housing market index from the National Association of Home Builders had gone essentially gangbusters. Let me pull this puppy up. I may actually show this to you just to show you the interactive trend line here. Right. So going and leaving 2019, we were at all-time highs. And we're like, where are these building permits and housing starts to reflect this optimism? Where are they? And we just didn't get them. And they were strong. Don't get me wrong. Like we're just talking about, they were at solid levels, but they were not at the levels where, the 76 index reading of the HMI would suggest. People were still being relatively prudent. 2019 comes around. It ends off on close to a high, basically an all-time high. And then January starts off at a 20-year high. And then you'll all know the rest of the story. February into March, what happened. But the index comes out yesterday. The month prior, which was for May, showed this thing trying to crawl back. It soared from 37 last month to 58 this month, but it was inching back before that. It went from like the low of 30, which is where it fell at the heart of this crisis, and it was inching back to 37. But inside, people were always saying, the home builders were always saying, and this is for single family new homes, the market for single family homes. And they were saying, you know what, in 6 months, I feel like I'm going to be building my butt off. I feel like this is going to be an explosion. And the National Association of Home Builders echoed the National Association of Realtors, saying that they think housing will lead this recovery. Not just the timing, but that it's been a loaded gun for a year. And that home buyers just hadn't pulled the trigger yet. And they were about to before the coronavirus kicked off. And then everybody implemented these lockdowns. But now, if things are going to recover quickly, they're going to go back to wanting to pull the trigger again. And home builders, which is what the HMI measures, builder confidence. How much confidence do builders have in the market for single family homes? And if this thing is going gangbuster, we should see it in the report I just read to you on new residential construction. Well, it just bounced back strongly. Building permits came back strongly. So it echoes what came out yesterday with this HMI. Let's get into it, and then I'll show you that recovery. The NAHB, National Association of Home Builders, Housing Market Index reported builder confidence unexpectedly surged 21 points to 58 in June, and said housing is positioned to lead a post-pandemic recovery. Any reading above 50 indicates a positive housing market for new single-family dwellings. And again, the all-time high, which was hit under Donald Trump, was 76%. 76, a reading of 76. So we're now at 58. Forecasts range from a low of 39 to a high of only 50. So while the consensus forecast was 44, indicating a rise of about 7 points, obviously it blew past that forecast, indicating the surge was far stronger than economists expected. Dean Mon, who is the chairman of the National Association of Home Builders, said this: as the nation reopens, housing is well positioned to lead the economy forward. Inventory is tight. Mortgage applications are increasing, which I just read you, sidebar. Interest rates are low and confidence is rising. Buyer traffic more than doubled in 1 month, even as builders report growing online and phone inquiries stemming from the outbreak. And I know I'm coming up at the close end of this segment, but I'll extend it if I have to before we get into the voter analysis. The National Association of Home Builders, Wells Fargo, HMI, Housing Market Index, is derived from a monthly survey that the NAHB has been conducting for 30 years. It measures builder perceptions of current single-family home sales and sales expectations for the next 6 months as good, fair, or poor. The HMI also rates traffic of prospective buyers as high to very high, average, low, or very low. Scores for each component are then used to calculate a seasonally adjusted index. Readings above 50 indicate builders view conditions as good over poor. And this is Robert Dietz, who's the chief economist for the National Association of Home Builders. Quote, housing clearly shows signs of momentum as challenges and opportunities exist in the single-family market. Builders report increasing demand for families seeking single-family homes in inner and outer suburbs that feature low-density neighborhoods. That's ours, Laura. The outer. At the same time, elevated employment and the unemployment and the risk of new local viral outbreaks remain a risk to the housing market. Before I go on to the sub-indexes and then wrap it up with the regional, which I'll do quickly. This is why they want the headlines screaming about new waves of viruses. Everyone who protested against the lockdowns because they were trying to survive economically, which is a question of health. Everyone who wanted to survive and protested these lockdowns were grandmother killers who were irresponsible. Anyone who protests fake police brutality statistics, they're exempt from lockdowns. The virus doesn't spread to them, apparently. And they take new case data and they skew it because new case data does not matter. If you're testing more, you're going to get more positive tests. It's really about hospitalizations and then, of course, ventilations and death. There, with the exception of some areas in Texas and Miami-Dade in Florida, which they're overblowing, there is no suggestion, there is no reason that we should ever enter a lockdown again. But of course, that is what they are trying to do. Why? Because they'll kill this V-shaped recovery. They'll kill it. They are more than happy. They are more than content hurting millions of people. They don't give a damn. They just want Joe Biden elected and Donald Trump thrown out of office. The entire lockdown was used as a political weapon to cut Donald Trump's Achilles heel, which was a strong economy. There are too many people who don't like Donald Trump, but will vote for him anyway because of his economic record. And they knew that. It terrified them. They knew that they wouldn't tell, some of those people are not going to tell a pollster the truth, which we'll talk about more in a bit. So they did this. So they used the coronavirus outbreak as a political tool. If you don't know that by now, I don't think I can help you. But most of you who watch, I'm sure, do know that. And I'm telling you, and I'm imploring, do not buy this crap. This is to hurt you and your family. And they don't give a damn if they do it. They just want Joe Biden to win. That's the most important thing to them. They don't care about grandma and grandpa. If they did, they'd go after Cuomo and Tom Wolf and Murphy for forcing nursing homes to take infected patients and killing thousands upon thousands of our senior citizens unnecessarily. Those deaths should be reclassified as democide, which is death by government. They were unnecessary, avoidable, and with the right policies, not panic policy, those deaths could have been avoided. And many of you weren't even allowed to go to your mother or father's funeral. You weren't allowed to hold a traditional funeral. You weren't allowed to hold a wake for grandma and grandpa. But the protesters are allowed to go out and riot all over every major American city. They killed their credibility. Do not let them kill this V-shaped recovery. Do not let them do it. Over more skewed, before they did it on fake data, straight fake models. We've done shows on that too, and I'm not going to circle back to it. Murray is a fraud. Ferguson is a fraud. Those people are frauds. Do not let them kill this V-shaped recovery. All right, so the sub-indexes of the HMI. The gain in the HMI was broad-based. All of the HMI sub-indexes posted increases and improvements in the month of June. The index, and why is that important? You know if you watch the show. The Northeast is dying. The Midwest was dying before the Trump revival. But growth in this country is in the South and in the West. This was broad-based. There was no region that lagged. Of course, others are going to come back faster. But the index for the current sales conditions soared 21 points to 63. The index for sales expectations, which are in the next 6 months, shot higher 22 points to 68. And the measure charting traffic of prospective buyers, which he was talking about, Dietz and Mom were talking about before, skyrocketed 22 points to 43. Regional housing market indexes, looking at the monthly regional HMI scores. There's just an average. The Northeast surged 31 points to 48. The Northeast, the dying Northeast. The South jumped 20 to 62. The Midwest jumped almost as much as the South, 19 points, 251. And the West also shot 22 points higher, 266. Like I told you before, the West and the South are the highest because they show the most growth. They're the regions of the country that are adding people, adding economic activity, adding homes. The people have to live somewhere. So naturally, the housing market's going to be better in these areas. We see it all the time too, even with existing home sales, not just new home sales that are being bought. Existing home sales from the National Association of Realtors, pending contracts. The South and the Northeast, the South and the West are always the strongest. The Northeast is always the weakest. And the Midwest is right between the weakest, which is the Northeast, and whatever trades off as the strongest for that month, whether it's the South or the West. In some of those indexes, the South actually has the strongest growth. In others, it's the West. All right, so I can kill that there. It's 1037. Holy moly. Went right over that. All right, let's do the little spiel, and then we'll get into the polling. Let's get into that analysis. Let's hope everything holds here, Did I show that HMI? I can't remember, folks. Again, one more time here before we go. Residential construction. Gold being building permits. Red being housing starts. Completions lag, so we still see a downward trend. It will bounce back. That's new residential construction. The housing market index we were just talking about. Look at that graph. If that is not a V-shaped recovery, there is no such thing as one. Look at that graph. And I submit the only reason why it's not sharper is actually for a good reason. It didn't continue to go down the month prior. It shot up unexpectedly. It was, by the way, unexpected for that index to go to 30 to 37. It was supposed to either hold flat or tick down, depending on who you're looking at. Why we do a consensus forecast. We don't do what the Wall Street Journal or Reuters or Fox Business give you one forecast. That's like giving you one poll for an election. Because that's all they are, glorified polls. Look at that V-shaped recovery. Look at this. Look at retail sales. Never mind if the HMI isn't, I don't know what is, this. Retail sales really showed it. That's how to wrap up that segment with retail sales. Holy moly, look at that. V for Vendetta, baby. Booyah. All right, let's get into it. All right, it is 10:39, now almost 10:40. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Thank you for watching, and you can follow me on Twitter right there if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. We will talk about what will happen if Biden wins with the recovery. I will. I promise. All right. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook if you are a Facebook user, even if you don't watch on Facebook Live. Don't forget to mosey on over to People's Pundit Daily's Facebook page and go ahead and click like. Smash the like button, like Obi says, right? And then troll on over to YouTube and give us that thumbs up if you're watching the show on YouTube right now. And don't forget to subscribe to the page, People's Pundit Daily on YouTube, so we can hit that milestone. And if you want to be alerted to when we're about to go live, hit that notification bell, because now we're doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until Laura and I fall into the housing completion category, and then we'll go back to it. But Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, I may decide. Maybe tomorrow I say, hey, we got a little bit extra time, Laura. I think we could do another one. And I'll just decide to jump on. Hit that notification bell. This way, you know we're going to go on. And it'll always give you, at least an hour notice, at least. And then, of course, the ultimate way to support the show is to subscribe to the best data journalism website in the world, which is where we just read every single one of those stories off of. And that's at peoplespunditdaily.com. And you can go and find a digital subscription by visiting the website, or you could take the short link right to the page, which is ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. There's a monthly, annual, and credit tier. So if you're just a chart guy or girl and you just want to look at trends, and you may want to look at an article here and there, you can decide whether or not you want to use a credit. It's usually, every credit is like $1. And I think every article, except for more in detail ones, are only a credit. So it's like $1. And then even, by the way, what we're about to go over now with the party affiliation, that one was only $1. I give usually, you want to make this 1 or 3? I made it 1 because the interest level with polling right now is so high. And some of the polls that I'm seeing out there are just so out in left field. I wanted to show you it's not my opinion. This is a database. You're like arguing. Some of these people that yesterday verified Twitter are like arguing with me. You're arguing against the database. It's not my opinion. I mean, argue if you want. Knock yourself out. We'll get into it. All right. But yeah, and we love you for it. Those of you who do subscribe, because that is how we bring you what we bring you. That's how we're even able to expand to do the show. We sink most right back in. And once I get more comfortable and we move, then I will use the new stuff more. There's so many things that we can do that we're not taking advantage of. I just don't have the time at the moment, to get into it. That's right. Numbers don't lie. Data don't lie. People do. Data don't lie. People do. All right. So again, yeah, that's the best way to support the show, is to subscribe. But don't forget to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and share the pages with your family and friends who you may find, may think will find it interesting as well. All right, let's get into the numbers. Bear with me a second here while I tell everybody, like I told them I would, that I'm going to get into the voter file. All right, bear with me. Going to get into the voter file analysis now. Tune in, right? All right. I know. Look, some people simply don't have 2 hours to watch a show. And I get that a lot on my feed, where they're like, well, what do you think about this? I can't watch your entire show for 2 hours. Look, I spend too many hours on Twitter, as Laura will tell you. I spend too many damn hours on social media in general. And I pride myself in doing as much as I can to answer as many questions as possible, whether it's on Twitter or it's in my DM. And then we do the show most days, for 2 hours. It's time consuming. So I can't repeat everything I said. So in response, what I told people is I will tweet out, right, like I just did right now. Okay, you don't want to watch the whole show on whatever. This is the segment on the voter analysis. Here it is. It's coming. Don't ask me at 3:00 about what I said about the voter analysis. Okay, I just can't. Look, nobody has that much time in their life. So if you can't watch, and I even understand that, at least you'll know from my tweets, this was the segment on the voter analysis. Knock yourself out and go view it. Okay. Here we go. With all of these polls going on, all right, some of them are showing Joe Biden with a pretty solid lead at this point. While we haven't done any national polling, and you have heard my views on national polling, I think at this point it's pretty safe to say that Biden does have a lead. I just don't think it's that big. And I don't think that it's not ground that Donald Trump can't make up when he goes out and does what Donald Trump does, which is work like an ox out there on the campaign trail, and he outworks his opponent, which is what he did to Hillary Clinton. And it's ground that can be made up. And some of these polls are coming out, Fox and CNN among the worst, and they're just ridiculous Democrat electorate advantages. And over here, we know it inside the numbers, right, folks? PPD readers and inside the numbers viewers know that it is not oversampling Democrats. It is that Democrats are overrepresented. Those are two terms that are different. They have different definitions. And the so-called smart media pundits who don't know from their elbow about polling misuse every day on Twitter, on television, in their articles. It's ridiculous and drives me crazy. It is overrepresentation. And sometimes that overrepresentation comes in the form of D+8, D+9, and I've seen even worse. Look, it takes a long time to scour a database of 213 plus million voter records, but we did it. In 2016. All right, you know what? Let's just read it. Let's just go through because I don't want to jump back and forth, but what a national voter file analysis tells us about party affiliation. Do national polls reflect party affiliation in 2020? All right, look, folks, this is not my damn opinion. What the hell kind of ads are on PPD? You guys always see girls in bikinis on PPD? Jeez, man, I got to do something about that. All right. My Lord. It's supposed to be like a data journalism website, man. It's supposed to be looking at anyway. The bottom line is, let's look at the results, but I'm just going to say this as a definitive statement. This is not my opinion. A lot of people seem to get this wrong yesterday. It is not my damn opinion what the DRI split turned out to be. This took hours of putting together different queries. If you are a software engineer or you are a web developer, you know what I'm talking about. It is a database. Tables and columns, rows make up the columns and rows making up tons of tables in a giant database. You add parameters to the search query that you're trying to research, whatever you want to know. It runs the search query on the database and returns values based on those perimeters or those parameters that you set, those search parameters. I did a very broad one here. I was very generous to Democrats because I know the ridiculous sample sizes that we're seeing. A ridiculous overrepresentation in some small sample sizes that we are seeing. And I'm going to make the argument here that is response bias. These swings to these large D plus polls, that is response bias. In 2016, our national polling was D+3 to D+5, never got over D+5. I think maybe once or twice it got to D+6 based on the likely voter model. But that was because Democrats were having these short little pops of enthusiasm, but never caught up to Donald Trump. In the end, the polling was D+3, because if you wait for the correct demographics and you have a good sample, a representative sample, a large enough sample, you do not wait for party. You wait for core demographics. And if you do have a decent sample, the electorate will speak to you and it will tell you what it is going to be. Our final one was D+3. The electorate was D+3. In 2016, what I'm about to show you, if I would have entered the national database and entered the search query in that national database right before the 2016 election, we would have gotten a better result for Democrats. There were more Democrats back then than there are now. And that is just a reality. All right. So the projected party affiliation of the national electorate has long been a source of controversy in public opinion polls. So in response to this, we went ahead, got a little cray because it does take some time to do this. And we ran a national voter file database search query to determine the partisan affiliation breakdown as expressed in terms of a DRI/other split. So in a poll, you will see, and on Twitter and everywhere else that everyone turns into an expert on polling analysis, they go DRI. It's a DRI split. We get a little bit more in depth. Even exit polls do that, by the way. We get a little bit more in depth, and I showed you why last week. When you actually look at those codes, there are a lot of different third parties. There's unknown, there's independent, which is a party. There's none, which is one of the larger groups of non-two-party voter affiliation codes. None and unknown are the two largest, meaning they are nothing. They are true independents, because independent is an actual party on many ballots. All right? It's a designation is a better way to put it. All right? For context, 135,500,034 total votes were cast in the 2016 U.S. presidential election for candidates on two-party and non-two-party tickets. So Donald Trump, the Trump-Pence ticket, the Clinton-Kane ticket, the Johnson, what was the guy's name? What was it? Johnson's ticket, Stein's ticket. And then there were two others, actually, on many ballots. That is the total number of votes that were cast for them. About 135,500,034. And not about. That is exactly how many votes. According to the exit polls, the partisan composition of the electorate, as expressed in terms of the more simplified DRI split, Democrat, Republican, Independent split, was 36, 33, 31. 36% Democrat, 33% Republican, 31% Independent. If I was to run the search query exactly the same right on November 1st, 2016, or October 31st, 2016, it would have been D+6 or D+7. I'll just tell you that right off the jump. As you can probably suspect if you have not read this article yet, it is not anymore. There are less Democrats now than there were 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago. Laura, does the 36, 33, 31 split look at all familiar to you? The polling we did, anywhere, depending on who you're talking to, fake polling, experimental, not gold standard panel came in exactly at 36, 33, 31. To the T. To the T. The National Voter File Database search query of 213 plus million records, excluding only deceased and change of address flags, which if you are a show watcher, you know that is the default. People who have change of address flags are not likely eligible to vote in the state they have moved to yet. What that means, it's not that they can't be eligible. It's that they have moved and they haven't squared it away. So they're no longer eligible to vote in their once home state or prior state. And they haven't registered to vote in their new state. So in a national voter file, they have a change of address flag. All right? That's an example of that. They should not be in this number. And of course, dead people should not be in this number. Now, I know Democrats want to mail out ballots to everybody, including dead people, which is something Republicans are going to have to watch. It could cost them, I'm not going to lie to you, it could cost them some states. If we just mail ballots to everybody, as you know from our series on voter fraud in America, being registered to vote is not the same as being eligible to vote. Those are two different things in the United States of America, which conducts its elections in a third world fashion. All right, so we excluded them, and yet we still returned 188,205,069 records. That again, 188,205,069 records. About 53 million more than those who voted on election day or before total votes in the 2016 presidential election. 2018 was a solid midterm turnout, but still did not come near it. 2012 was a solid Democratic turnout election, but a lot of independents and Republicans did not feel inspired to come out and vote for Mitt Willard Romney. So there was about 17 million less. So I'm stressing this point for a reason. I'm being overly generous to Democrats here. There are 53 million more people in this analysis, records, voter records. There are 53 million more. I am casting a very large net. A very large net, of which you would think, in all conventional wisdom, would tell you would help the Democratic Party. Of those, the party affiliation breakdown, drum roll please, the party affiliation breakdown, as expressed in terms of a DRI other split, was 36, 32, 32. D plus 4. Rounded to the nearest whole for each. And I know I'm coming up on the hour break. I'll wrap up this. We'll take a break and then we'll come back and we'll defend what it means to be an inferred partisan. I am more accurate than the pollsters who are asking people, even though party affiliation is fluid, which was one of the criticisms, which was actually one of the more sound, valid criticisms. Yes, party affiliation is indeed fluid. It is. But I know more about you sometimes than you know about yourself. That is the scary era of data that we are living in. Big data is scary. Sometimes I know more about you than your brother does, than your sister does, than your mother does, your father does, your son, your daughter, your grandchild. Some of the people have a lot of data history. They have a lot of data markers, and it paints a very clear picture. It's very accurate, okay? For those areas where there are no partisan affiliations or representations. All right? Again, 36% Democrat, 32% Republican, 32% independent and other, rounded to the nearest whole for each. There's our cute little pie graph. Let's take out independents just to watch it spin, right? No, I did that to show you the proportion. Very close. If we just did it as a 50-50, it shows a very slight edge for Democrats. Not a big one, a slight edge. Democrats also happen to lose more of their voter base than Republicans do historically. Crossover vote is bigger. It benefits the Republican candidate more often than not. All right? And then with independents, of course, you can see it's about the same size as Republicans. That is to say, when we break it down in specifics, and I know I'm coming up on the hour, 36.39%. When we when we get down to hundreds, 36.39% were identified or inferred Democrats. 32.14% were identified or inferred Republicans. And the remaining 31.47% were identified as independent other, and worth noting, because we will talk more about this after the break. Worth noting, the query did not include a voter propensity score or turnout probability modeling. You guys know who watch this show. You know what I'm talking about. We look at your voter history and we ask, how many times is it, if I call somebody and we ask, how likely are you to vote? Sometimes, shocker, they lie to us. Estelle down in Miami-Dade tells me at 89 years old, I don't like either one of them. I'm not going to vote this year. And then I go and I look at Estelle's voter history, and she's voted in every damn election since she turned 18 and was eligible to vote. I know Estelle is full of crap. She's lying to me. She is a likely voter, and she's going to vote. That is a great, thank you, Bill Weld. Thank you, Lamp. Yes, Weld, who got blown out this time, really thought he was going to make a serious challenge on MSNBC. Anyway, I'm telling you, I know more than whether or not the voter file is more accurate, then the machine learning is more accurate. And from the turnout probability modeling, watching the voter file analysis, that in most battleground states, not all, but in most battleground states, turnout probability modeling and voter propensity scores tend to favor Republicans. Remember that, because when we come back, we're going to talk about whether or not this electorate really will be D+4. Or is it that Republicans are simply not answering right now? So when we come back, we'll look at what it means to be inferred. And then I have to go over all of this before we get into the regions of the country. You're wondering, you will wonder when we're done, where the hell are these Republicans? Or these people who would lean Republican? The answer is Republicans have done a horrible job at reaching out to them. Democrats have not. They've done a great job, which is why states like Nevada, New Mexico, once a very close battleground state, Colorado, also once a solid state for Republicans on the presidential level. Nevada, definitely. Democrats have been better at looking at those opportunities and saying, you know what, that's a state we can flip. Virginia, another great example, different demographics, but another great example. Whereas there are states, Connecticut, Maine, Minnesota, where the voter profiles are so strong for Republicans and they haven't done a damn thing about it. Not a damn thing. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about what it means to be inferred and why I am telling you this is far more accurate than anyone else's information out there. And we'll get into that, and then we'll talk about what is the likelihood that Joe Biden is going to benefit from a higher turnout, which would be what he would need to get. He would have to have a stronger level of enthusiasm for his voters to make the electorate more than D+4. And he'd have to do it up against somebody like Donald Trump, who has a strong, enthusiastic base of supporters. All right, you guys are watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, to give in to the need and leave it all behind. Cause I know that you know that I know that you own me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back. It is 11:06, almost 11:07 on Wednesday, June 17th. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit. Thanks for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter if you don't already at Peoples_Pundit. Don't forget, for the new viewers who just tuned in on Periscope, click that link over to YouTube. It is a much cleaner, much better stream. And don't forget to subscribe to the page on YouTube when you get there. And folks, mosey on over to Facebook and like the page, People's Pundit Daily, on Facebook as well. We'll love you back for it. We'll love you forever for it. Of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to peoplespunditdaily.com, the best data journalism website on the internet. Get some data for your dollar. Go to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. And don't forget, data don't lie, people do. All right, I'm getting quick with that, aren't I? Anyway, let's get back to our voter analysis, which is what you came here for. You did not come here to listen to me blab on. Inferred party affiliation, okay? Because in truth, what we're getting when we run these off the bat, when we run these search queries with these parameters in the database, the National Voter File Database, we get returns of what, and actually, I'll pull it up right now just so I'm not giving you something, harebrained right out of nowhere. That's with voter propensity scores, which I will give you a sneak peek of before we leave the show today. Well, what does it look like? It is D+4 straight up. 188 million voters, 53 million more than those who turned out in 2016. What is it when we add the voter propensity scores? I will give you that. But when we run these, what we really get is only a little bit over 22% more, known Democrat and 14% inferred. Okay. And then with Republicans, it's lower. We get known 16.3%, inferred 15.8%. All right. And then those combined is basically the sum of, all right. So again, for those who didn't hear it before, all right, that the party affiliation breakdown is expressed as the sum of records identified with party codes and inferred partisans, the sum of, combine them, add them together. The other variable in the split is expressed as the sum of independent, unknown, none, and all other codes not belonging to either of the two major political parties. That would include the Green Party, Libertarian Party, which is very small nationally. Unknown is a very big one. That's almost 15%. It's like almost 29 million voters who are just flatly unknown. Independent, a little over 26 million at 14%. Okay. Or no, I'm sorry. My eyes just got shuffled. I was just looking at inferred. Independent is really about 1. That's actually the independent designation. Not as you hear on Twitter. Well, it's independence. DRI, 36, 32, 32, or in exit polls. That is an independent designation, which is why we do I/other. And then nuns are big at over 14%, about 27 and change million, 27,077,062 to be specific. All right. So the sum of other variable is independent, unknown, none, and all other codes. That comes to 32%. All right. Inferred party affiliation in primary states: Arkansas, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia. Inferred Democrat is identified as having voted Democrat in more primaries than voted Republican from 2000 to the current time with the primaries. Or no primary vote history for either party, but has a Democrat or liberal donation. Yes, that's right. I have your contributor records. Like I said, it is a scary era to live in when it comes to big data. Maybe you have a Democrat or liberal donation. You have a pro-choice flag. You're a supporter of the Affordable Care Act, meaning you probably gave to a group or something. Anyone with a Republican or conservative donation, pro-life or anti-Affordable Care Act flag is excluded. So even if we come up with some of those other flags, if there is a contradictory flag, you're not inferred. You're put into the unknown category. It's very accurate. It's very specific. It does not accidentally catch people. We know from your activity, from your behavior, either your vote history, your donations, or both, among other things, as I just read. We know it's accurate, folks. Inferred Republican is identified as having voted Republican in more primaries than Democrat from 2000 on, or no primary vote history for either party, but have a Republican or conservative donation, a pro-life flag, anti-Affordable Care Act flag, or Second Amendment supporter. Anyone with a Democrat or liberal donation, pro-choice or pro-Affordable Care Act, is excluded. Again, to make sure we don't make mistakes. Inferred party affiliation in states with neither party nor party by primary: Alabama, Hawaii, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Vermont, Washington, Wisconsin, North Dakota. Inferred Democrat is identified as having a Democrat or liberal donation, pro-choice flag, or is a supporter of the Affordable Care Act. You seeing a pattern here, guys? Anyone with a Republican or conservative donation, pro-life, or anti-Affordable Care Act flag is excluded. Inferred Republican is identified as having a Republican or conservative donation, pro-life flag, anti-Affordable Care Act flag, or Second Amendment supporter flag. Anyone with a Democrat or liberal donation, pro-choice or Affordable Care Act flag is excluded. I'm telling you, my point of reading this redundantly is we are not accidentally catching the wrong party. Okay? And I know this from experience. I know this from experience. I know from drawing these records year after year, election after election. I know from when I pick up the phone and poll them or recruit them for a panel. I know what the code is when I pull them out of the database. And I know what they tell me when we ask. It's accurate. Very accurate. In truth, sadly, a lot of people over time, not many, change their behaviors. Largely the trend since 2000 has been a certain number. Like, let me put it this way. Democrats benefit from the newer voters that come into the system more, meaning younger voters and people who are naturalized or immigrated here and are naturalized or get married, that kind of thing. They benefit from those kinds of voters. Republicans, they don't benefit from defections over the Republican Party. Some, of course, we're going to see some crossover like that. That's going to happen, but that's not been the case in huge numbers. And when there have been Republicans who went off the reservation, a lot of times they've come back. Republicans, on the other hand, do benefit from Democratic white voters who have come off the reservation in the last 16 to 18 years. As Democrats get older, they are more likely to change their partisanship as they get older. And it is true and is a valid question. It's not a valid criticism because, like I just told you, I know their vote history. So I know whether or not I'm being, walking into a trap with whether or not party affiliation is fluid. And it is. It is not really static like registration. Tons of North Carolina Democrats don't vote Democrat anymore. They're older whites and they vote Republican. Tons of Democrats in West Virginia don't vote Democrat. Tons of Democrats in Florida who are older and white still say they are Democrat and do not vote Democrat. Now, in Florida, the Republican Party has done, and in Pennsylvania as well, they've done a great job of pushing these people over. Go and change your registration. Go. They've done a very good job at that in some of these states. In some of these states, people just have resisted it. North Carolina being one of them. Democrats have an advantage in registration and have had for a long time. They have. That advantage has shrunk considerably over the years during the era of Barack Obama specifically, and then into the Trump era. But when you run these models and you look at vote history, this is machine learning crap. It's not my opinion. I know what they voted. I know how they voted. I know the primaries they're voting in, I know their vote history. I know whether they donate to certain causes or not. You're not going to be a lifetime member of the NRA, and you're not going to find many records of people who are Second Amendment supporters and have been for years, yet are donating to, I don't know, give me some left-wing group. The Sierra Club, the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's just not, it doesn't happen as often as the media would have you think. It just doesn't. And then we know because we'll look at the primary vote history and we'll say, do they vote, in more left-wing primaries than right-wing primaries? And in open primary states, maybe they don't have a party designation. But we'll look at their vote history and we'll say, wow, they vote four primaries in a row. They voted in the Democratic side. So obviously, while they're an independent, they lean Democrat, or vice versa. They say they're an independent, but they go in the open primary and vote on the Republican side. And then you have the true independents who switch, and they go back and forth. And they can be really tricky because maybe, and this happened in 2016 to us quite a bit, maybe they voted in the Democratic side in an open primary state, but their candidate didn't win, so they ended up voting Republican anyway, which is crazy, but it happened. And we saw that with Barack Obama many years ago too. He was able to do the same thing, attract those kinds of voters. Which is why, by the way, in a state like Wisconsin, we call him the Obama Walker Trump voter, or in Pennsylvania, it's the Obama Trump voter. Same thing, plenty of them in Pinellas County, Florida. There are places where this goes. So my point I'm trying to make here is we're not guessing. This isn't my freaking opinion. When people wait for party ID in these polls, when they put their thumb on the scale because they don't like the result they got when they waited for age, gender, education, region, whatever it is that they waited for. Don't worry, Laura, I will not go on and I will not tell people what our base weighting model is. I can hear that one already. Believe me, guys. I will not get into that. Everyone is different. When they do that, and then they get a party ID split, but they don't like it. And they think, you know what? I think it's going to be more Democrat than this. And then they add a variable, a weight variable for party. They're guessing. Not me. This is a database. You want to argue with a database? Knock yourself out. At this point in the game, there's no good justification for anything beyond D+4. And I'm going to tell you why. That would be people telling us that Joe Biden's voters are more enthusiastic than Donald Trump's voters. If they think it's going to be more than D+4, then they have to necessarily be telling us that their likely voter model is showing Democrats are going to vote at higher rates than Republicans. Maybe Joe Biden earned more votes than Donald Trump in the state of Pennsylvania. Maybe. Maybe he earned more in this state or that state. But incumbent presidents don't attract vote shares like that. It shouldn't even be close. Go back and look at Barack Obama's numbers in Iowa and in some of these other states. New Hampshire was the first real, even though Iowa was a record, New Hampshire was the first real test because New Hampshire has a protest vote. That is the state where if you're going to lose a lot of your base vote in a primary, that's going to be it. The highest and most ridiculous record was Ronald Reagan at 84.6% in 1984. That was the highest vote share out of any incumbent, and he got the most total votes at the time too. The second one after that was Bill Clinton, and then Barack Obama was number 3. But we're looking at a loss of about 20% of their base vote. Donald Trump comes along, breaks that record in New Hampshire. Vote share, total votes. Incumbent presidents don't attract vote totals like this. And they damn sure don't they don't get vote shares that outpoll, that are more consolidated than the polling suggests. And I should have put that up. Today just to drive that point home. We've been keeping track of when there's public polling, and then if we don't have it, we have approval ratings or whatever. Donald Trump is exceeding those indicators in his actual vote totals, in his actual votes. It has exceeded the polls. So it never really should be close. His enthusiasm level, no matter what you think of the man, enthusiasm for Donald Trump is probably one of the highest, if not the highest, I've ever seen for any incumbent president ever. It is not uncommon for partisans to want to come out and defend their president. Even George Herbert Walker Bush, he made that stupid comment, read my lips, and then went back on it. And he still did decently with his partisan turnout. He just happened to lose a ton of them to Ross Perot for breaking his promise. Carter, same thing. He just got crushed among independents, and he lost too much of his base, and that's why Reagan ran away with it. He got crushed among independents. Same thing with Bill Clinton, 96. Democrats came out in force for him. In 2000. I get used to like 2020. So if I try to go back in time, it's like 2004 or 2000. I go to say 20 something, 2000 doesn't make sense. 2004, and I even do it sometimes. But Bush, he had a decent turnout, nothing to crap over, nothing to sneeze at. But then in 2004, Republicans came out to defend their president. They came out in greater numbers. Democrats actually did get their target of 3.5 million more votes concentrated in battlegrounds. Unfortunately, they voted for George Bush. But Republicans still came out. I believe that electorate was R+1. And there were a lot more Democrats than there are. In 2008, Obama just crushed John McCain. But then he became the first president ever to be reelected with a smaller margin in the Electoral College and a smaller share of the popular vote than he got when he was first elected. He became the first and only president to lose ground but still be reelected. He lost independents to Mitt Romney by 5 points. He won because Democrats came out in force for him. They came out to defend their guy. That's going to happen. It doesn't matter yet. Well, of course it matters. But let me put it this way. Modeling the electorate, looking over and just the poll, not beyond the polls, modeling the electorate, conducting these voter analysis reports, running the machine learning models on turnout probabilities. If Joe Biden wins this election, it will be because he did better with independents. It will not be because the electorate is D+9. Because Republicans are going to come out and vote for their president. They absolutely are going to do it. And we even had some indication that they would at higher rates for Trump in races in 2018 where it really did, like people took it personally about Trump. Look at Florida. The independent vote swung. Democrats had a mood of almost +10. Yet they still lost the state of Florida because Republicans, they came out and voted for Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott. Why? They fully embraced Donald Trump. And he's very, very popular here with Republicans. Look at the turnout in Collier County. Hell, they lost Pinellas by an inch and still won the state. Bill Nelson carried Monroe. And yet he still lost. Why? Because Republicans came out. It was like a march to the polls on election day. The early vote always did look good for them. Now, I'm not looking at the comment section right now, but I'll tell you right now, right, Madam Producer? Laura can tell you guys, it was an army. They were at 100% of 2016 turnout in Collier County by the end of the morning at like 11:30. Right? It was like 11:30, Laura, right? The head of the Republican Party in Collier said we're at 2016 levels already. They saw DeSantis as a staunch defender of the president. They saw Rick Scott, who is and was a personal friend with the president for many years. They saw these guys as Donald Trump on the ticket. And if one of them loses, it would be akin to Donald Trump losing the state. And they weren't having it. In Ohio, which some polls, a lot, actually several now, are showing Biden ahead of Donald Trump. Highly, highly skeptical of that, by the way. Highly skeptical. Look at what happened in 2018. Republicans went out en force. Why? Because they have several representatives and several names who stood by the president during all this crap. It was essentially a referendum for them. They beat back the national trend. So, just something to think about. Point is, anyone who models the electorate, the Monmouth poll, whatever it may be, comes out and it's like Biden 14. And you look in and it's Fox's. Look, I'm not picking on Monmouth. I'm saying a lot of them are doing it. Fox is among the worst. And it's like D+11. They're telling you that Democrats are going to be more enthusiastic to vote for Joe Biden than Republicans will be to vote for Donald Trump. Because the national voter file is only D+4. Not my opinion. Again, not my opinion. Argue with a database all you want. Perhaps what really is going on is that you have scared the hell out of Republicans and conservatives to talk about who they are, and they're not answering the phone anymore. Gallup, R+1 last month. 2 months in a row. Now it's D+2. A reasonable result. Honestly, a reasonable result. If I polled the national mood right now, I would probably get around D+3 myself, or even D+4 maybe. Because I do think that Democrats are going to come out and vote against Donald Trump. I do. He excites. I saw, in 2018, they got a lot of voters out. Republicans did not get a lot of their voters out. That's just a reality. However, Trump will be on the ticket this time. And in states where he made it personal, Florida, Indiana, in states where he made it personal, they came out for him. They did. And they're going to come out for him again. That's it. I mean, really. And if anybody tells you otherwise, just remember, I'm not giving, this is not a damn opinion. This is a database. All right. And they're arguing with the database. All right. I just don't see it, folks. I don't see it. Joe Biden, as much as Democrats hate Donald Trump, Joe Biden is the least exciting candidate in a generation, according to most of the polls. ABC News, Washington Post, they have a very long history of that. He surpassed Hillary Clinton as the least enthusiastic candidate. Democrats were less likely to say that they want to vote and will vote for Joe Biden or are enthusiastic than they were for Hillary Clinton. So while they did good in 2018, they didn't reach nationally the vote total that they got in 2016. And that was even with coming out in force in places like Broward County, because they did. John James lost because the Democratic incumbent got Hillary Clinton level turnout in 2016 in Democratic areas, but he did not get Trump level turnout. So I'm just saying there's an X factor there. And that's my point. Listen, I need some water. So instead of just doing a quick little break, I am going to do a quick little break with music. I won't play the whole thing. Just need to grab a drink of water. When we come back, I will answer some of your questions, and I will look at, there's one state I'd like to at least, no, don't do it. All right. How about this? I'll decide it on the break. I'll run the voter analysis in some of these states, and maybe I'll pop one up and show. I just really wanted to get into Connecticut because when you push the Caucasian, independent, and less liberal vote in a state like Connecticut, when you push them to lean, that state goes from looking like it has a 16-point Democrat advantage to narrow. And there are some issues now. You know, we always see Democrats seize on issues that can help change a state for them. And we almost never see that with Republicans. And, you know, that's something that's going to have to change if they hope to offset some of the losses that are inevitably going to come in the Electoral College. You know, the map changes, like I told you guys the other day. The map changes. A good forecaster not only understands that electoral maps shift, but understands when they're about to shift. All right? The only thing consistent, the only thing we can count on being consistent about political coalitions is that they consistently change. They do not stay the same. All right? Let me take this hot break, and I'll be back in like a minute and a half. All right?
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for knives to give in to the need and leave it all behind. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, I'm back. All right. I needed some water, you know. It is what it is. All right. So this thing is running and running and running. I think I exhausted my database here, so I don't want to overdo it. Unfortunately, I can't pull it up. I will, though, however, mention one thing. And let's see if we can. Yeah, I can. All right. Where is one of these places where when we run these national analysis, we look and we see, you know, there's just a wealth of votes that Republicans don't take advantage of. One of them is in Connecticut. And I really wanted to show you the voter analysis in Connecticut, but he's doing the spinning wheel of death over here. But in Connecticut, when you run a straight voter analysis, it looks daunting. And you wonder, well, how could it be that these gubernatorial races are so close all the time? A lot of them are close in Connecticut. Bob Stefanowski, in an election cycle where Republicans damn near, oh, it looks like it's going to work for me. Amen. Where Republicans damn near got blown out everywhere, in the House, definitely. It's D plus 16 when you just run a regular voter analysis in Connecticut. And yet Bob Stefanowski barely lost that. And I know a lot of Republican friends in Connecticut, a lot of active Republican friends who think that election was taken from Bob Stefanowski. They say it was, you know, not just like in the traditional areas where you'd expect something to be wrong, like Hartford, you know, stuff like that. It was really like Democrats in rural areas were ringing up, you know, 400 votes here, 200 votes there. And the election was only decided by a few thousand votes. It was close. And Bob looked like he was going to pull it off. And then, you know what happened? The vote counting stopped. And then, shocker, shocker, they found, you know, a couple thousand, you know, and even some rural areas adjusted some of their vote totals. So I do know a lot of people are pissed off about it. But the truth is that a lot of these white voters still in the Northeast are Democrats. And we'll look at Maine too tomorrow or Friday. But like I said, that's why I say subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell, because it's possible tomorrow I decide, you know what, I have something to say. I want to do a show. And I jump on anyway, even though we're scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. All right? Because until at least, like I said, we become one of those housing completion indicators, and then we'll get back on the grid, which it's close. It's coming soon, guys, but we've had a lot of hiccups. And it's hard to do this from like 1,000 miles away. So I got to stay on top of it now. Like I didn't want to do. Like I didn't want to be that guy, that stickler. But apparently I have to be that guy. Otherwise there's going to be issues. And I've waited too long for there to be issues. So you'll have to excuse me for taking it back a little bit before this is over. But I got to make sure it's right. But what we find is that in these areas, there are tons, and now under the era of Trump, of working class Democrats who are voting Republican, or at least are willing to vote Republican. And there are even more out there that Republicans are not really doing the necessary legwork to reach. So that's how you have a race like that get close, that close. That's also how you see Republican candidates who are good candidates flip Senate District 6 and Assembly District 99 like they did in February, about a year ago. In February 2019, Republicans upset Democrats in 2 special elections in Connecticut. They were big upsets. How big? One of the districts has been under Democratic control for a quarter century. Gennaro Bizzarro. No kidding. Gennaro Bizarro, not making it up, defeated Democrat Rick Lopez in Senate District 6, 53 to 43-69. In 2016, Hillary Clinton carried that district against Donald Trump by 26 points. We've been over it. It wasn't just voter turnout. Get down into it. Get granular into those neighborhoods. There were shifts underneath the surface. But when you see something like this, you've got to jump right on it. You have got to jump right on it. Republicans used to carry Arizona by big margins. They used to carry Georgia, big margins. Now, I don't think Georgia is going to go to Joe Biden, but Arizona is close. Biden's leading in most of the polls there. Now, I have my own views about those polls, and hopefully soon I'll be able to get into Arizona myself. We've been over the voter analysis. But that was a change that when you see it, your radar has got to go up. And you got to say, what happened here? There aren't enough Republicans in that district for a 32-point swing. What happened? In 2018, Democrat Terry Garantana defeated Republican Robert Schmedley 58-63 to 37-41. That was an 8-point shift from the 2016 result. That's called a trend. I'll look in a second, Madam Producer. Meanwhile, Republican Joseph Zullo defeated Democrat Josh Balter in Assembly District 99, 52 to 43. All 5 of those special elections that night were held to fill vacancies created when Governor Ned Lamont appointed Democratic incumbents to his administration in January. Ned barely beat Bob Stefanowski. He barely beat him. All right. While turnout was low, there were swings that caught our eye. You cannot see, and it's not just a matter of how low the turnout was. The move was already, the trends were already moving. But if you don't jump on these and make efforts, you could lose some of those gains. And states don't flip overnight. You don't flip or change a state overnight. Even Donald Trump, flipping some of those blue wall states, he worked his butt off to flip those states. He held 3-4 rallies a day. He was all over the place. He repeatedly came back to them, one after the other, after the other, after the other. All right. And then there was also another one there. But look, the bottom line is there in this district, that specifically the assembly district, there had been moves that were already pronounced. And you have to look at them and say, you know what? That may be worth some resources and time. Just like Democrats do when they look at a congressional district like Nebraska too. All right. Let me look at this thing. All right. Let me look at this. I'm sure it is a good question. Let me peek at it. Oh, that's okay. Some very basic stuff. Okay. That's actually a good question. And I want to answer this because I get this a lot more than you'd think. What does D+4 mean? When we were going over the voter analysis before. All right. D+4 means that the percentage of the overall electorate is 4 percentage points more than for the other party. So 36% Democrat, which is just taking the example from the National Voter File analysis. 36% Democrat, 32% Republican, 32% independent means Democrats will represent, partisan Democrats will represent 36% of the electorate. Republicans will represent 32% of the electorate. So one partisan, in this case D+4, means it is 4 percentage points more
for one party's representative share of the electorate than the others. If it was R+1, it would mean maybe 35% Republican, 34% Democrat, the remainder being 31% being independent. All right, so no, it doesn't mean it's 4 times more likely. Those reflect the percentages that they represent in the overall electorate. All right, I hope that answers the question. But yeah, if you guys have ever have any basic questions like that, that's what I'm here for. Don't think any question is like not ask, you can't pose any question. You can. I mean, you have to walk before you crawl, right? No, you got to crawl before you walk, kind of thing. So any simple one, yeah. And by the way, I tweeted it out. I will send it. It's way down on my Twitter timeline now, but I'll tweet it again. If you want to look at the 2nd congressional district, because that's another state when we're talking about Nebraska, the state as a whole is overwhelmingly Republican, of course, right? But there are, there has long been this push to go after Nebraska's 2nd congressional district for Democrats, and there's good reason. It is not the district it used to be. Donald Trump held on to it by 2 points. It's like a bear. And actually, I can pull that up now. They swing vote. So when you see somebody, we tend to favor Trump on it slightly, as we do in Maine's 2nd congressional district. But it doesn't mean a Democrat cannot win in that district. In fact, in 2018 for the U.S. House, the Democrat eked. It was so close. Actually, Bacon recovered it. I'm sorry. It was, I guess, I don't know what I am thinking about. I don't have it in front of me right now, but looks like, those races have been decided. Yeah, in 2016, decided by 4,000 votes. In 2018, decided by 5,000 votes. Very close. Hillary Clinton did very well in that district. She got, where is it? 47. I want to say 47 to Trump's 49. I mean, it was close. Very close. So it can be in play. But Democrats put effort into this. Republicans don't. They don't see, the map shifting as well as Democrats do. And if you're a Republican, that sucks to hear. But that's absolutely true. Okay, all right. I'll look. Okay. Ooh, that's a good question. Do I think Mueller? Yeah, we have 10 minutes left, or a little bit less, actually, because I got to cut out of here a little bit early. But do I think Mueller had something to do with losing the House in 2018? I think that the 2018 House vote, the number one issue by far was healthcare. You cannot lie to voters for 7 years about repealing and replacing Obamacare and then expecting them to just be cool with you and reward you for it. There were entirely too many districts where the failure to repeal and replace Obamacare left Republican candidates open to the attack that they were trying to take away protections for pre-existing conditions. Now, those of us who really know that's not true. But because they failed to pass it, voters never saw the reality. So Democrats were able to basically lie and say they're going to take away pre-existing conditions. They tried to take away protections for pre-existing conditions. And of course, that is absolutely not true. But you can't defend yourself against something that doesn't exist. And that hurt them badly. That being said, there were several seats out in California and elsewhere where the Mueller investigation absolutely did hurt. And while it wasn't, the central issue, in the battleground states, in the voter analysis that was run of the 2018 electorate, in the key battleground states, most voters did think that Robert Mueller's investigation was political. But battleground states are not the only places where there are battleground congressional districts. Rohrabacher, I pulled that race. He got killed by that. The connection, the Russia connection, that hurt him bad. And Bloomberg put millions behind that. And we watched. We watched Republican women get convinced that Dana Rohrabacher was trying, number one, was too close to Russia himself. And number two, was trying to cover up for Donald Trump. Bloomberg's ads just ran constantly. They bombarded him in that district. And it went from Rohrabacher +6 to -2. Now, had Rohrabacher gotten 2016 level turnout, he still would have hung on to that race anywhere from 2 to 6 points. They were missing about 30,000 Republican voters. About 14% of Republican women decided they believed that crap. And they voted for Ruta. And then you had a whole lot just decide, I don't know or I suspect it, so I'm not going to vote for Dana Rohrabacher this year. And it killed him. And that's why he lost. That's how he lost. So I do think that it had something to do. Absolutely. I do. Healthcare was the main, because I don't want to let Republicans off the hook here. Paul Ryan and John McCain cost the Republicans the House of Representatives. Why Paul Ryan? Because he is a liar who told people they had a consensus plan, so certain groups were not working on. There were a couple of things. There were certain groups that usually get together, like the Tuesday Study Group, the more moderate wing, and then the Liberty Caucus or the Freedom Caucus, and they'll get together and they'll hatch out their issues. There were many months where that didn't happen. No progress was made. They weren't even addressing it because Paul Ryan was generally telling both sides that he had agreements from each. And he didn't. And when the plan came out, it stunned the Freedom Caucus. It stunned them. And Paul Ryan was he's just a liar. I mean, Paul Ryan is a liar. Was a liar for a long time. Sad but true. Yeah, I'm not getting off the Nicorettes anytime soon, so get over it. And then John McCain, obviously, who is more probably, if not to blame, because he had no reason other than being a vindictive, spiteful, old, bitter man. He had no reason to do that, to put that show, that thumbs down show. It was a bitter, bitter thing to do. I had the head of the VA psychiatric wing in a certain area, because I don't want to blow him up, tell me that John McCain was just disturbed. You know, like nobody wants to like stare into the abyss of eternity and, you know, be on your way out and use one of the last things that you do is take an act of revenge or spite. Like there has to be something wrong with you to do that. You know, you had to have been like a bitter man to begin with. Like something had to have been wrong with you to begin with. But John McCain is obviously more, I think I would say more to blame even than Paul Ryan, because even though Paul Ryan screwed it up, lied to everybody, they eventually got together, if you remember, and they hatched out something that wasn't ideal to either one of them, but that they could agree with. And he killed it. He killed it out of spite. He killed it for the very reason, you know, you hear like we talked about Don King and Rush Limbaugh's take on why people hate Donald Trump. A big part of it is they hate Donald Trump for being able to accomplish something they have not been able to do. They hate it. They hate him, and they hate the idea that an outsider can come out of nowhere and do things that they've been promising year after election after election after election to do and haven't done. Not for any real good reason other than they're lying politicians. I mean, John McCain is a liar. When he ran against Kelly Ward, he ran ads about how he led the fight to repeal Obamacare. And then all of a sudden, we're supposed to believe that he had some moral change of heart. And that's why he couldn't support a bill that he essentially voted on multiple times or agreed to vote on multiple times. He's just a bitter, old, sad liar who went to his grave a shadow of his former self. It's pathetic if you think about it, but these are people that destroyed the Republican Party. They were Bushites. And McCain had his own problems with Bush, but ultimately he fell in line with him on most of the big things. He was a spiteful old fool when he put his thumbs down on George Bush's tax cuts too, which many people at the time believed was spite, jealousy. It was his turn to be the Republican nominee. And then Herbert Walker Bush's son came in and stole that from him. Everybody knows John McCain thought he was robbed of that nomination. And then he used the excuse that he was the real conservative who cared about deficits, and that's why he couldn't support that. That's a load of crap. What Republican or conservative doesn't know the CBO scoring is static and always wrong? That's a Democratic talking point. But without the ability to show Americans, here's our plan. It's now law. You will not lose your protections for pre-existing conditions. It left them vulnerable and open to attacks, false attacks, from Democratic candidates all over the country saying that that's what they were going to do. And in fact, the congressman in Minnesota who lost his seat penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal specifically blaming Paul Ryan and John McCain for losing the House. It was impossible for him to defend himself against those attacks. But there's also a real good reason why Democrats ran security and foreign policy and military figures up and down ballots all over the country that year. They had pushed the Russian narrative. Alyssa Slotkin, I still can't pronounce Abigail's name in Virginia 7. They were going to use that narrative as an after. You know what? Just in case Donald Trump is corrupt, just in case he's a Russian agent, wouldn't it be wise and prudent not to have these shilling Republicans as the congressmen, just in case we find something bad? Wouldn't it be better if we had moderate, level-headed foreign policy experts? And she worked for the CIA, so she's a patriot. Never mind that she blew Iraq up. Everything Alyssa Slotkin has touched in the foreign policy world has turned to dog. Not even human. Dog. She is the biggest failure of a professional. But there's like an old joke in academia. If you cannot defend your thesis, or foreign policy academia, if you can't defend your thesis, that's okay. Just go join the State Department. And if you can't make it there, that's all right. Just run for Congress. There's a reason for that old adage. All right. So yeah, it was definitely part of it. However, if they were able to get through that healthcare bill, then a lot of those districts, Sessions, although they smeared Sessions good in Texas. What's his name out in Washington? I forgot his name already. Starts with a D. Only know his first name. I can't remember his last. But yeah, that hurt. Those hurt. Those districts, those white, not metro suburbs, outer suburbs. Those hurt. The healthcare issue hurt Republicans with those voters badly. Laura, I'm not sure I want to comment on that Arizona right now for obvious reasons that you should know. I don't know if I want to answer that, but we are at noon. I'll defer on it, answering that Arizona question. If I feel like I can answer it tomorrow or Friday, I will. All right, so tentatively scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. All right, but it's possible I could just decide I want to jump my butt on one of these streams. All right, and we'll do a show tomorrow. So don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to the People's Pundit Daily channel and hit that notification bell to give you a heads up when we're about to go on. Okay. Also, Facebook users, if you watch the show and you are on Facebook, do us a favor and mosey over to the People's Pundit Daily Facebook page and go ahead and like the page, People's Pundit Daily. We promise we won't bother you constantly with notifications, just when we're going to go on the show, as usual. And then, of course, the best way to support the show, folks, is to subscribe to the best data journalism website on the internet, People's Pundit Daily. You can do that by going to peoplespunditdaily.com or taking the shortcut, ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right, folks, I'm going to kick rocks and head on out of here. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me on Twitter if you don't already, right there at People's_Pundit. We got a lot more to talk about. I had a lot more material here. So tentatively scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m., maybe tomorrow. So don't forget to hit those notification buttons. All right, folks, kicking rocks. I'm out of here. All the best.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow